My name is Arkheim Ra. I am a time soldier, um, super soldier, asset, and today I'm here to talk about a planet that I know as Centurion Five. I am a temporal soldier, a time soldier. That means that I am taken for Black Ops time warfare projects. Montauk being the most popular one, Project Phoenix being out of Montauk. Montauk was just where its inception, where it started. But I have been used for another time travel project dealing with a planet called Centurion Five in the past year. So in 2022, the entirety of 2022, I was taken at least a dozen times, but it could be even more. And basically, what it was is there was a class 7 planet, which meant that it was in a region of space where there was certain phenomenon happening on in the region where it made it hard to detect that there was actually a planet there. And not only that, it was in some sort of temporal field where time worked different there. I can't remember exactly. I think I went faster or slower like that or something, but there was something going on in that region of space that made this planet naturally hard to find and almost undetectable. And when they did find it, I guess what they realized is there's going to be a battle that was going to happen off in the future, and the organization that did this, which I believe may have been Solar Warden, but I'm not sure. But so don't quote me on that. I can't say exactly. It seemed like a joint operation to me. I'll get into that, but the goal was to create an entire population of human beings that could be called upon for a battle in the future. So we interrupted the life cycle of a planet, completely upended the local bipedal species, and they ended up being subjugated as a lower class, basically slave race on their own planet. And yeah, Centurion Five. Entire lives were lived, and people fell in love. Movies and plays were written. I mean, they had the same culture and arts and automobiles and some of the same brands like Nestle and stuff like that on this planet. It was a very Earth-like planet, and that's what's so eerie about it. But what it was is, when they first took me there was a ship operating in a sort of beyond time. I don't know if I should call it a time bubble or not, but they were operating in such a way where the people on the surface aren't involved in time travel operations, and they have a craft where they can go anywhere they want in the period of the planet's history and alter things. So there was a group of scientists essentially overrunning the operation from the outside of it, not on the surface, but in a craft. One of my alters, Ryan Sterling, was sent down to the surface of the planet to basically we were sent down with like rudimentary stoves to make food, tents, a system where you could easily create running water pretty easily. You could put it together. Really, it was made to kind of put together quickly without that much infrastructure. So we just had a simple setup at first, which was literally like a tent city, and we worked our way up to cabins, and then we worked our way up to having like an actual small town, and eventually this small town with running water and plumbing, we eventually got everything, and electricity. We worked our way up until it was a megatropolis with maybe not billions. I shouldn't say billions with a B, but there are at least millions of people living there. I can't go into my memory and tell you the exact population, but there was a city that I lived in. Another thing that's interesting about Centurion 5 is they have multiple alters who live there. So one of my alters that it has to do with Centurion 5 is Ryan Sterling, which is an alter of mine that basically is a time soldier And his job on Centurion 5 is being a time cop, policing time, going back and editing things, changing things if he needs to. And he lives in a mountain. He lives in a mountain on the planet that the local inhabitants don't even know about. The inside of it's like a hotel, like a fancy hotel. And he's a ghost. Ryan Sterling is a ghost on Centurion 5. And yeah, so he was used more than once to help start things out and build infrastructure. But that was for the operations where I needed to have knowledge of what was going on. I needed to have knowledge of the fact that this was a time project and I was a time soldier. When they just wanted to use me for labor, and there may have been more authors, but the ones that I remember specifically were Ryan Sterling and then another one named Marshall Howard. Marshall Howard was just a normal blue-collar guy, lived in an apartment, and he worked either construction or mining, depending on where the work was and where the money was. And I think the reason why Centurion 5 is important to bring up and why I'm talking about it today out of all the different experiences that I had is I saw on that planet what I think is sort of a loose vision of Earth's future. And it may seem like it's not on the subject, but it is. I'm going to talk about the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, it sounds like you're making it up when you say it, but it's literally coming from the horse's mouth. They literally say you will own nothing and be happy. And they basically, it's this idea that like capitalism has expended itself. There's not enough resources or whatever, so they need to make like a rental-based economy where you rent everything, and that's why you own nothing and be happy. That's where that all comes from. And another thing that's connected to that is they want to control the population of Earth through our food, or lack of it thereof. Because on Centurion 5, when I was Marshall Howard, every month or week or something like that, I would get this powder, boxes of this powder stuff. And I think I would get it delivered to my door. All I know is for sure I got like every month or something like that. It was a certain time I'd always get it. And it was these boxes with these containers, and it was this powder stuff. And Nestle made it. I can't remember what it's called, but it has a name. Like all foods have kind of a name, like bread, you call bread. It had a name, but I can't remember what it was. But you'd mix it with water, and this was depicted in Star Wars. You'd mix it with water, and it would fluff up and turn into this like bread cake-like substance that tasted like chemical but sweet, like almost like birthday cake, but not like birthday cake mixed with cornbread mixed with chemicals. It's really weird. And the first time that I've had memory of eating this stuff was being a kid on a ship full of Greys, and we'd always eat these little squares. And I didn't see them make it and mix it, but it was the same fucking thing. I'm sorry for swearing. I apologize. I have a potty mouth. I'm trying to be better about that in these interviews. But so, and because of that, so they have this idea on Centurion 5, like nobody goes hungry, and they're proud of that. They wear it as a badge of honor, a chip on their shoulder, that their society is so strong that nobody goes hungry. But what they fail to leave out of that pride, that nationalism, is the fact that you can't eat normal food unless you're one of the elite. It costs 13 weeks of pay to go out on to a normal restaurant and have like a normal dinner if you are a lower class person. So that means that you eat the paste, or you work your ass off if you want to eat real food. Not only that, like I remember I'd get paid and I would spend my extra leftover money on, I specifically remember it, I would get almost every time, I would get Italian bread, Italian salami, and that thick mozzarella cheese. And I'd be able to make sandwiches for a few days depending on if I ate them for every meal or if I ate them for once a meal. And people on that planet, if you were a lower class person and you were seen buying food, it was a social stigma. They thought you were stupid because you could be saving that money. You're lower class. Normal food is for the rich. and you should be fine with the bread, powder, chemical paste stuff we give you. And because of that, because of the way food, and let me backtrack here. The reason why they're able to give these people this, like actually make people accept this and be like, oh, okay, this is okay, is cows are bad for the environment. Growing food is bad for the soil. They tell these people this unbelievably ridiculous lies about their own food, about our relationship to food and nature, and they just make it seem like, well, it'd be unsustainable for everybody to just eat normal food all the time. That's the idea that they try to create, and that's where the paste comes in. And yes, there's bugs in it. Bugs, crickets is one of the main ingredients of the paste. So they're trying to do that now. They're trying to get people into eating bugs. They're trying to get and eventually Nestle, the company that made that same product on Centurion 5, is going to try to release that here, and it's going to be hailed as this great thing, and no one's going to go hungry. Meanwhile, there's this agenda behind it. They didn't have the public, meaning the civilians, did not have replicators on Centurion 5. Just like on Earth, that technology is hidden from the public. Ryan Sterling had a replicator in his room, and he could have whatever food he wanted. But the civilians didn't even know such technology existed. That is hidden from them. So that's why, he would always, Ryan would always be eating Ryan, not to confuse Ryan. Ryan ate good. Marshall was the poor one. Ryan was a ghost that was working for their equivalent of the CIA time travel program, whatever you want to call it. And he was treated rather well, ate well, lived a nice life. He just is a ghost, so you can't live a normal life, but it wasn't treated bad. So on Centurion 5, I noticed that there were similarities between Earth, that there were some of the same companies. Now, I don't remember a great deal of them, but I do remember that Nestle was there. I remember that, I believe Mondelez, the company Mondelez, was there. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm positive Nestle was there. What was the other company that I remembered? It's important. It was also like a food, Coca-Cola. They had Coca-Cola on Centurion 5. One of the things that really struck me as really odd about Centurion 5 was school buses look the same. Yellow school buses, they look the same. Stop signs look the same. I was in an English-speaking city, so not everybody there spoke English, but it was mostly English-speaking. And on Centurion 5, there's an English-speaking city. There's a German-speaking city, which I believe is called New Berlin. I don't remember what the American one is called, but I believe the German one was called New Berlin. And there was a Italian city. And then for a while, the French shared the city with the Italians until their own city, which was smaller. It's like the smallest city on the planet, got built, and there's a French city there too. But yeah, one of the things that I remember, and this is something that one of the first memories I got back of Centurion 5 was I was Marshall Howard. I was working on construction, and I was telling the guys about how Earth, like I'm telling you about Centurion 5 now. I was telling them about my memories of Earth and how the school buses look the same, the stop signs look the same, all the things that I'm telling you now. And it was one of those things where like my coworkers, like most of them thought I was kind of crazy, but a couple of them were like, well, I don't know, maybe it's true, Yeah, that is something that I find really eerie. But one thing that is really wild about, like, when I talk about the similarities between the planets and stuff like that, between Earth and Centurion 5, and this is connected to music industry stuff, which I'll get into later, but at the end of this particular segment of me talking, the song "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana, everybody knows that song, huge song. On Centurion 5, there was a song with the same melody, but it was Italian, and it was more like an opera kind of song. And that tells me that that melody is ancient and that Kurt was given that song. And there's this thing that they would do at Montauk where they'd send a guy through a portal. He'd say, hey, I'm the devil. I'll sell you the song and you'll get fame and fortune. And I don't know if they did that with Kurt or not, because I wasn't there. I wasn't the one who did that. I don't have memories of that. But what I can tell you is, though, is he did not write Smells Like Teen Spirit. At least not the melody for it. He might have made it punk rock and did his own thing with it. And he's a brilliant musician. I'm not calling him a thief. But this is a common thing, is where they'll put songs out there that are from these programs. They'll put them out there and they'll use them. They'll get you to sign a contract. They pose as the devil. John Wick can talk about it. He was the one who would do this a lot of the times. They'd get you to sign a contract of the devil selling your soul. Everybody's heard about the concept of selling your soul to the devil. It's not the devil, okay? It's a time traveler, and you're selling your soul to Time Corps, basically, to Black Ops programs. And it's not one lifetime. We're talking your soul forever. And you have to break that contract in order to get out of it. And they look at it as, it doesn't matter if they tricked you. You signed the contract. You should know better. I don't particularly remember being taken to Centurion 5, but what I do know is that it was an ongoing process, and that for a week or two, they were taking me every night and bringing me there. At least a week or two. And how I figured out, how I got the memories and realized, like, you know, these memories are real, is one of the times when they took me to Centurion 5, I woke up on the craft, and to me it felt like a dream when I woke up. Like all SSP memories, well, sometimes it feels really real and it was like you're actually there, but sometimes it feels like it was just a dream, and you question it. You don't know if it was real or not. You don't want to just go right into it and be like, oh, I was in space. This particular time, I had a memory of being on the floor of a craft and there being people all around me, all zonked out. Like they weren't fully conscious. They were in a stupid state. Like they're on drugs. And I remember thinking, oh, they took me and I'm not going to remember this. So what I did is I took this necklace and I ripped it off the chain. I ripped it off my neck. And when they found me, I remember there was a little girl that came in with a scientist, and I believe the little girl is actually one of my daughters, which is messed up. And she goes, oh, look, Daddy's trying to remember, like, tell on himself or something. I can't remember how she said it, but she's like, Daddy's trying to, remember or whatever. He pulled off his necklace, And so they put it back together. And when I woke up, the first thing I did, I wasn't there when they put it back together. I don't remember that. But when I woke up, the first thing I did is I put my hand on my neck. The necklace was still there. I'm like, okay, it was just a dream. But then when I actually got up for the day, I noticed that, yes, it had been yanked off my neck and put back together. You could tell. You could tell I yanked it off my neck. And that's when it hit me that all the memories were real. So how did I get there? I got kidnapped from my bedroom when I was sleeping. And physically, I'm put into a craft, and then they took my consciousness out of my body and put it into a clone. And the clone would be the one who would do all the work. And then once that clone was, my mental energy was, they need to replenish it, bring me back to source, which is me, the source code. They'd bring me back, put me back in my body, and they'd take me the next night for a whole nother lifetime. I think I've lived at least a dozen lifetimes. I believe there was a version of me basically on that planet at all times throughout the human history of it. Versions of me just being a construction worker, normal blue collar guy. But like I said, there was Ryan, who was a time soldier. As far as who took me, I am not 100% positive, but I am almost sure that it was Solar Warden. Because during that time, I was working at a school, and at that school, there were all these different kids and teachers at that school that I remembered interacting with on Centurion 5. And there's an underground facility underneath that school. I was cleaning it. I was a cleaner for it in the here and now. Underneath that school, there was a facility. And there's a tall white that I would interact with that looked to me. I call him the Ice King, because he wears a blue Soul Warden suit. He's got a long beard, It just makes me think of, and he's like Oak's kind of old and stuff. Makes me think of the Ice King from Adventure Time. But I think that it's Solar Warden because I know for a fact that program that was going on at that school was Solar Warden, and I saw so many of the same faces on Centurion 5 that I think it had to have been Solar Warden. And something interesting about that is, like, I got memories of different teachers at that school clearing out forests with me. So, like, when we first got there, right, there was a time where, and what they did was, okay, this planet is a tropical planet. Centurion 5 is a tropical planet. Like, big time, like, it doesn't snow there. It's a tropical, beyond belief, tropical paradise. But it's also full of dinos, giant bugs, dangerous creatures that will eat you. So what they did when we would move into the areas that the indigenous population would live in, and there are these creatures that look like Admiral Akbar, and they live in like swamp regions. They're almost semi-aquatic. We would move in close to them because that was the space that was already the most habitable, where you didn't have to clear it out because it was thick jungle, you know. And when we spread out, what they did is they put us in bigger bodies. Like, I would say they're probably 2 to 3 times the size of a normal human body, and they gave us like laser guns, and basically we cleared out the whole forest, cut it all down with laser guns, killed the dinos. I mean, we just killed everything to make room for cement and skyscrapers. So they had whole teams going in with guns just to clear out land and kill dinosaurs and stuff and make it so that people could live there. And every single city on Centurion 5, which is this is great for the World Economic Forum 15-minute city districts, all that you can only stay in one place thing, is you can't leave the city. There's a domed wall around it because there's dinosaurs out there. It's dangerous out there. If you go into the jungle, you are going to die. Like, unless you got the guns with you and the right equipment and armor, you are going to die. You're going to get eaten. So the only way to get to the other cities on Centurion 5 is by underground Magna-Leviton train. So, and 15-minute cities, like the idea of like, oh, you can go to the grocery store and you can go to the theater and you can walk everywhere. That's great. That's a wonderful idea. I don't want to knock down the idea, but when you turn that idea to where, but you can't leave, that's where it gets bad. Like, I'm all for the idea of walkable cities. That's a wonderful concept. But the concept of you can't leave your walkable city is where it gets bad. So don't let them lead you into that with walkable cities are good. You know, and that's the thing that is these people all the time. They'll lead you into nefarious stuff with stuff that's great. It's like, wait, a city I can walk around in? I don't have to pay insurance on a car and have a car to do everything? That'd be great. I love that. And then next thing you know, you can't, they have districts you have to stay in. You have to get like hall passes from the cops and stuff like that to go to other districts and stuff. Like, even in the city, you had to get permission to go to certain parts of the city. It was locked down like that. And yeah, the tropical environment where you couldn't just, like, it's not like Earth where you can just go on the highway and go wherever you want. You're trapped. You have to get special permission to go anywhere, and only the military and police officials and stuff like that are allowed to roam more or less freely and go where they want. And the average resident of Centurion 5 has never left their home city, very likely never even left the district that they live in. Centurion 5 is in a binary star system, meaning there's 2 stars. One's closer, one's a little further away. I'm pretty sure it had 2 or 3 moons or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm positive about the sun, and I'm positive they had at least 1 moon. I think they had more than 1, though. Something tells me that Centurion 5, I wish I could say whether it's smaller or bigger than Earth, but judging by the size of the creatures, that all the creatures were so much bigger, probably smaller, because that's how it is on Mars. Everything, gravity's smaller, so everything's bigger. So my guess is that Centurion 5 is a smaller planet, maybe like Mars size or something like that, because of how large all the wildlife was there. It was so much bigger than on Earth. And yeah, it was a beautiful planet. because of the two suns, I don't remember there being night necessarily. It would maybe get dimmer during certain times, but you never get like straight up nighttime, which contributed to the tropical environment. Um, yeah, it's kind of hard to answer some of these questions because I have to go into my altar. It's like once I pull out memories and access them through my altars, they're mine too. I'm trying to answer this the best I can, but what I can say about Centurion is despite the fact that it's really dangerous, it is a beautiful planet. I mean, it's very beautiful, very tropical paradise. And I do also remember that there was like a this is kind of random, but I remember there was a like a like a zoo almost. There was this thing where it was a part of the city where you could go out and you could see the forest and dinosaurs out there and stuff like that. But like there was this protective thing so they couldn't get at you, and people would pay to go there just to kind of see what the forest outside the wall looked like. I remember that, and like yeah, it was scary, man, because the dinosaurs would like look at you sometimes and they'd be like scream, like because they wish they could reach in and gobble you up probably. But yeah, I remember there being pterodactyls and stuff like that there too, and that they had to there were people where their jobs were to make sure that the pterodactyls wouldn't come down into the city and swoop down and cause too many problems. They'd like shoot down the pterodactyls essentially. But yeah, it's very much like an ancient Earth, like because there are dinosaurs and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if Earth looked very similar during like the Jurassic period. So they started colonizing Centurion 5 for me in my timeline, which is different than the time bubble timeline that they have. But for me, they started colonizing Centurion 5 early 2022, maybe even late 2021 they started it. And yeah, like I said, I was getting taken every night. But I do believe that Centurion 5, the planet as it exists, doesn't exist yet. I think that we start colonizing it like 300 to 500 years in the future. So if you were to go there now, those bipedal brown Admiral Akbar people might be there, but I don't think we'd be there yet. I think this is far off into the future. From what I recall, after the battle, when we win the battle, it completely changes and it becomes this place for higher up people to go like get away, like artists and like higher up people that are respected and famous and stuff like that. They'll go there on vacation with each other to not be around the people that ogle over them for who they are. So in the future, Centurion 5, once that battle happens and stuff like that, I'm not saying that they totally get rid of the population, but I just remember I have this memory of being on Centurion 5 and being at the recording studio, which is something that I'll get into a little bit more later, and it'll be part of my next interview with James. We'll really go into that. But I remember being at the recording studio, and they brought me there in a train. I remember them bringing me on the train, but they gave me this powder stuff to interact with the recording studio, but I got addicted to it. You'd get sick if you didn't take it. But what I did is I took a little vial and I would when it would give me, the computer would give me like the powder to ingest, I would take just a little bit out and I was saving it. And eventually I saved this giant bottle of this thing of the powder so I could leave. That's why I did it. It's because if I didn't do that, I would get sick. Like if I didn't bring it with me, I literally would not be able to leave. I would get sick and die. They kept me on this powder, and that's how they kept me at the studio and not leaving. Once I collected all this powder, I remember I went out. I went on the train and I could just go. It was like AI. I was able to go on it. It didn't tell me, like, say, you're not authorized or anything like that. It took me to the city. I remember there being this white little car. Like there was a row. Once I got off the subway station, there was a row of white cars. And I was able to just get into one and just start driving it. And I drove for probably 20 minutes. And I remember driving through the city, and it was this giant highway, like multi-lanes long, like in the sky basically. And it was empty. There was no cars driving on it. The city it was just like it was dead. And then this like ship came out of my car stopped in the middle of the highway, and it was because it got remotely shut off because they realized, wait, why is someone drive? What? They realized it somehow. So they remotely shut it off. And I'm like, okay, fuck, what do I do now? Because I'm like, literally, like, there's no way I could walk back. There's no way I could walk forward. I'm like in the middle of this giant highway. And eventually the ship shows up that looks like Boba Fett's ship from Star Wars, but it's all black. And these guys basically use a loudspeaker, get out of the vehicle, put your hands up. A guy comes down, grabs me, they arrest me, they throw me in the back. They're wearing all black uniforms, black masks. You can't tell who they are at all, no markings. And basically they just brought me back to the recording studio and told me, like, don't leave again. The next time we're actually going to, like, punish you for it. So that's why I believe, and I have memories of when I was at that recording studio, they first brought me there, I got welcomed by people. And I remember being welcomed by Janis Joplin was there. I remember David Bowie was there and welcomed me to Centurion 5 and congratulated me on the fact that I was going to get to record all this music and stuff like that. John Whippard was there. I remember him showing up, and, I think he had a woman with him, and they stayed over and had dinner and stuff like that, and they congratulated me. But it was weird because it also seemed like I was doing it against my will. It's really confusing. But I was making a bunch of music for them to use for Black Ops programs. They give them to these singers. They give them to people. They make all this money off it, and they trim off the top big time. And it's a huge funding for these Black Ops programs is the music industry. Like, it goes as far as back as Decca Records. They're the ones who funded the radar for the military, and they're the ones who built the same people that built the Decca record stereo receivers and stuff like that, and made the Decca. Well, I know they made records for sure. I mean, I'm not positive they made stereo receivers. I think they did though, but they made radar. And the Rolling Stones talk about it themselves how they had no clue that, like, the music they were making was funding war, funding military stuff. And one of my missions, is my mission, is to show people that it's still going on, and that the music industry basically is the military industrial complex. And it's satanic. It's really satanic. And I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I would hear people talk about that, and I thought it was really silly. I urge people, I mean, you're super soldier talk people, so I don't have to tell you, but anybody out there who feels closed-minded about that, thinks that's silly, look into it with an open mind. If you look, you'll see. These people are openly satanic. They're not hiding it. They just depend on you to be so programmed by television and thinking that it's all fairy tales and not real that you don't even look at what's right in front of you. That's what they're depending on. But the music industry is mind control. I mean, Preston Nichols was the first person who really started talking about that, is that these songs are all mind control. So, it's a really interesting aspect of the whole Centurion 5 thing is the fact that the music industry is connected to it. The fact that when I got to Centurion 5, Dennis Pop was there. He was at the recording console, and he was the guy who told me, hey, you're going to take this drug that connects your brain to the computer, and you're going to control the recording studio with your mind. You're going to record these songs, and you're going to be able to manipulate them directly with your mind, which I thought was awesome. But, like, I was really excited about it. But I remember Dennis Pop being there, and when I got that memory back of him, I never knew who Dennis Pop was. I never knew who he was. I didn't know he existed. Well, I started looking into my songs. Okay? I'm really Celine Dion, when you're don't give up on yourself. Love comes to those who believe it. I wrote that song. And I realized I wrote NSYNC songs, and I realized I wrote Backstreet Boys songs, and I'm like, they're all over the place. They're different people, but then I realized, what do they all have in common? They all work with Max Martin, okay? My Montauk music got stolen by a guy named Jeff Berry, mostly. He wasn't the only one, but he was mostly the one who stole my music through his connection to Preston Nichols through Phil Spector. But my modern music that's gotten stolen that I made with somebody who I'm not going to name, a lot of it I made with somebody who has no clue any of this stuff happened. He got taken too for this stuff. I made a lot of stuff on my own, but there's also this other guy I work with. But how it worked was Dennis Pop is on Centurion 5, and then Max Martin is here on Earth, selling the songs on Earth. He's the Earth ambassador of this stuff. And they even have this little, I'm not going to get into it yet, but it's presented as a joke, the Church of the Holy Ghost Rider. And it's presented as, oh, well, Max Martin is like a ghostwriter. No one knows who he is. He makes all these songs, but no one knows who he is. And it's like, it's funny, you know, Church of the Holy Ghostwriter. And it's like, no, dude, they literally have a cult. It's literally occult is all hell. There's sacrifices happening. There's gang rapes of individuals happening in occult ritual type settings. All having to do with the music industry. All having to do with some of the music that you dance to, that you love, that you don't think anything of. Hit Me Baby One More Time. A 16-year-old girl talking about getting hit during sex. That doesn't raise a red flag for anyone? Like, they're putting pedophilic mind control in the music. Like, they're putting nefarious, bad things in the music. And, like, not to hate on all the great, positive, high vibrational rap and hip hop that's out there, but obviously the music industry totally hijacked that and tried to make it all about violence, all about guns. And look at it's literally death mind control right in your face. Killing people is cool. Having guns is cool. Money is cool. You know, I mean, and even with the rock and roll stuff, rock and roll back then, it really wasn't much better. She's Only 17. That song. They were a lot of creepers, a lot of really bad things happening, like Led Zeppelin. They were Aleister Crowley worshipping Satanists that diddled little girls, and people still love their music. No one cares. Like, so it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where I just want people to just stop acting like this darkness that's in the music industry isn't there. And it's just all fun. And it's not all fun. It's not all just entertainment. They're not entertaining you. They're controlling your thoughts. They're suggesting things. They're manipulating you without you even realizing it. And trust me, as I worked at Montauk, I worked at Centurion 5. I'm still, there's so much they've stolen from me, from myself. Like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what star cluster I come from and stuff like that. But I can tell you, somewhere in me, and I'm already getting my memories back, the power of music is incredible. It's the most powerful, magical, with a K, occult force that is blatantly in our faces all the time. And it's time for us to start acting like it. It's time for us to start honoring the magical, mystical, holy power of music, instead of it just looking at this thing to, like, forgive my euphemism here, but something to just, like, jerk off to just pleasure your mind with. Yes, you can do that, and that's wonderful. You can pleasure your mind and listen to a song that just feels nice. But music is for more than just that. It can program certain things into people, certain thoughts into people, certain frequencies. It does so much. And I think it's time for us as the human race to start looking at our relationship with music a lot more deeply, and instead of it just looking at this like, oh, it's just this thing out there. No, it's a religion. Whether you realize you're at the altar worshiping or not, you are. And it's time to start realizing, wait, who am I worshiping? What are these people actually about? What is behind the, wait a minute, like, Jay-Z filmed the music video on Epstein Island? What's up with that? Maybe the triangle stuff that he's doing is, maybe that isn't silly and something that I should scoff and laugh at. Like, the guy's literally making music videos on an island that had a submarine fleet trafficking kids to it. You can look at this fact. Ghislaine Maxwell had a submarine. Like, that's how crazy this gets. You can't tell, oh, it's just a coincidence, just two guys with money. No. It's a little club, and they all look out for each other, and it's, what is it called? It's mutually assured destruction. I got dirt on you, you got dirt on me, so therefore, even if you get me mad or I get you mad, we're not going to say anything about each other. So it's just like, people, start looking at what's right in front of you in your face and accepting it for what it is, instead of, and maybe I'm talking to myself 3 years ago, maybe there are people who are still struggling with this, but I'm saying, like, it's right in your face. You can break down the programming. It is what it is. 2 + 2 does not equal 5. Okay. There are 4 lights, right? Like, so when I lived on Centurion 5, I'll start with I'll start with Marshall Howard, who lived a very normal blue collar life, and then I'll move on to Ryan. You see, there's quite the juxtaposition there. Marshall Howard lived in a pretty nice apartment. It really was. It was spacious. There was a lot of room in it. I think it was like a studio though. I remember he grew plants. I feel like he might even grow pot. I feel like pot was tolerated on that planet. They didn't care. It might have been illegal and like it is on Earth, and a lot of people did it anyway. I can't remember, but I do remember I grew pot, and I grew other plants too. And I had cats. I remember having cats. I remember a lot of people wonder like, did Marshall Howard have kids or fall in love? What I remember is I was a pretty lonely guy. I remember that they had like these virtual reality machines you could go and do, and you could like experience like whatever, you could tell them I want this and I want to experience this. And dude, you had to be an absolute fucking loser with a life that just sucked to go to one of those things. It was like the lowest of low, right? And I remember going to them a few times. So it tells you what my love life was like. But I do remember that there was this girl that I met and I hit it off with her, and she was wonderful, beautiful, and she liked me. I think I was working construction, and I was probably all muscled up and sweaty and looked nice, right? And we just ended up talking, and I remember like making plans with her, like really far off in the future. And my excuse is, I'm just a busy guy. I'm just really busy. But what it really was is I needed like, no, it wasn't 13. It was 26. And then if I wanted to buy anything extra, so I worked a few extra weeks on top of that, just in case there's anything else that came up on the date. But I saved up all this money just to take her on a date. Like, it took me forever. And I remember I went on the date with her, and it went pretty good. And I think I might even like slept with her and stuff. Like, got it on. I think once she kind of realized how poor I was, she moved on, because she was middle. It was mostly just low class and the rich, but she was kind of like middle class, which was few and far in between, but it did exist. And yeah, she would rather marry up than down. And I mean, it broke my heart, but that it is what it is. Now, Ryan Sterling lived in a mountain that had like a peninsula thing coming off of it for like a landing pad for ships, and the side would open up and you go in there. And the inside of the mountain was like a hotel. And yes, I had a daughter. And my wife was my trauma twin. I believe her name, I might get this wrong, but she does have an alter name if it isn't the correct one, but I believe her name was Rebecca Sterling. I'm not positive. I do remember for 100% fact that our daughter's name was Martha Elizabeth Sterling. So we had a daughter. I also remember that John Whitberg, his Heinrich altar was on that planet, and he was a military dictator. Not a nice guy. The people on the planet don't necessarily, let's put it this way, there's a lot of people on that planet that don't like him. There's also like the rich, they'll love him, but he's maybe not the best person on that planet. Ryan probably isn't either. But yeah, I remember that John Whitberg's altar, Heinrich, and I believe it was Heinrich. I'm almost positive it was Heinrich. Maybe it was one of his other altars, but he would come and when he would come visit me, I think I might have had a son too, but I'm positive I had Martha Elizabeth Sterling. I remember her name. So and it's just so clear to me, but he would bring my kids gifts. I think I had an older son and a younger daughter, to be honest with you. The memories aren't like perfectly freaking crystal clear in my brain. It's like I remembered through my altar, and now I'm remembering what I remembered through my altar, if that makes any sense. But yeah, it's I had a child, and basically it's the trauma twin situation. They rewarded us with time with each other. They rewarded us with letting us be with our kids. That's how they would control me, and that's how they'd get Ryan to do what he wants. And I can tell you, man, I know what it's like. I remember I would literally do anything for my trauma twin. I would probably chop off one of my own arms if it meant being able to stay with her. So they have a really powerful way of coercing people there, because and that's something that's messed up too, like about Montauk. Like, they'll tell you to kill a room full of people, or we're going to torture you for hours. And you might say like, I still can't do it. Right? And they tell you to do some horrible thing. I still can't do it. That's horrible. All right, well, then we'll just torture your trauma twin in front of you for 4 hours. How do you like that, since you won't do it? You'll easily kill 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people if it means not having to watch your trauma twin suffer. And that's pretty sad, pretty malicious. It doesn't get any worse than that. It doesn't get any more psychologically tormenting than that. Like, I had to stay in my district, but there are a few times where I could get you could apply for passports to go to other districts, and they could approve them or deny you with zero discrepancy on that. They didn't need a reason. But yeah, I remember I would go to the farmers market, and the richy rich region I probably wouldn't even be allowed there, but the farmers market had apartments and stuff like that, and it was high class. And most blue collar guys like me, they wouldn't even go to the farmers market. They literally wouldn't even bother going, because it's too expensive. But like I said, I liked my my sandwiches that I would get. I would get the Italian bread and the pepperoni and salami, I think it was, and the thick mozzarella cheese that you'd chop up. And I just, for some reason, I just loved that. And I remember when I'd go down there, that's where you'd see the rich people eating in the restaurants. Rich people eating in the restaurants. And can you imagine, these people, they can afford to go out once, twice a week if they want, maybe even every day, depending on who they are. It takes me 13 weeks. Can you imagine the social divide there? These people eating in these ivory towers really think you're a bug in the ground. They think you are forgive my language here, but they think you're a piece of shit. And they believe the reason why you're poor is because you're an idiot. You didn't work hard enough. You're not smart like me. Just like on Earth. That's how people think here too. So, yeah, it's very similar to Earth, except all it is the problems that we have now, we let them exacerbate, and we let them get worse over the term of dozens of years or decades. They allow it to happen. But the thing that's nice here, and the good hope here is, Earth wasn't literally created through time travel. They don't have Earth in the just vice grip that they have Centurion 5 in. We have a chance to say, we don't want to eat bugs. Walkable cities are fine, but you're not going to tell me I can't leave. You're not going to put up things where people can't drive out. You know what I mean? You just have to say no. We just have to, it's, and I feel like these people, they really think they're going to get away with it. But it's to me, it's I hope I'm right here. It's such an unrealistic thing to expect humanity to just bend over backwards and go, sure, yeah, we won't eat real food anymore because this Earth that just can sustain life and was literally designed by God to do nothing but sustain life, yeah, it can't sustain us, so we have to eat cricket paste. What? It's not the fact that the Earth can't sustain us. It's the fact that we're treating Mom bad. We're not being nice to Mama Gaia. We're treating her terribly. So of course things aren't going great. There's a lot of manufactured lies and stuff like that, and geoengineering when it comes to climate change. But everybody can agree we need to treat the planet better. We need to stop treating our planet like it's just this dumping ground. It's our mother. You know what I mean? We should be praising her, thanking her, not treating her like a garbage heap. So with Centurion 5, like I said, it seemed to exist in some sort of weird time bubble or something like that, and they did not know that Earth existed. And I don't think that you could look through a telescope and see Earth clearly. I've been asked by quite a few people, do you know where Centurion 5 is? My best guess is that it's in the Centauri region of space because it's called Centurion. But I can't be 100. I can't even tell you for sure because I know that the reason why it's called Centurion has to do with the Chiron and the story of Chiron, who was a centaur, which is connected to the Max Martin, Dennis Pop music industry stuff. So I'm not sure if it's called Centurion because of the story of Chiron, and there's something going on there with the occult black magic stuff. That's why they call it that. Or if it's because it's in the Centauri region of space. I don't think Ryan was probably briefed on where I was and what was going on with the war and all that. He probably was. I don't have those memories right now. I can't access that. But what I can tell you is they didn't know about Earth. I was trying to tell them about it. That's probably the only source of information on Earth that they had. Ryan probably knew about Earth. Heinrich probably knew about Earth, but I did it. And again, like I said, I don't know if that was Heinrich for sure, but I think it was. I think it was Heinrich because, like I said, there was a German city, and he was a military dictator, and I think it was the German military dictator guy. So even though I was English speaking, I was Ryan Sterling. Yeah, I feel like, and like I said, he'd bring gifts to my kids when he'd come visit, and he was like an uncle to my children. If not literally, we've been trying to figure that out because of the Montauk stuff. If we're actually related, we don't know, but either way, he's a brother to me. Brother in arms. They abducted humans to be slaves because of our DNA, because of how sought after we are, because of how we can be programmed to fight in battle, stuff like that. Yes, there was a native bipedal species on the planet. An argument could be, why don't they just go in and use them? Because humans just work better. We're literally bred for this stuff. We're literally bred to do this. So that's why they and the thing is, with the native species there, they didn't get turned into like a slave race, but I mean they were like servants all the time, and they didn't get treated very great. But they were a part of, like, they were in the city. Like I remember they lived among the humans and stuff. We didn't like, oh, live out in the woods. They were in the city too. They were part of life on Centurion 5. They lived there. They were, sorry for knocking that, but they lived there, and people knew they lived there. And a lot of people looked down on them, and it was kind of like racism in the United States. You know what I mean? In the 50s and 40s and stuff like that, and throughout its inception, it was kind of the same thing. People looked down upon them as inferior. And I remember my alter marshal being pretty, like, compared to a lot of people, open-minded, and he thought the prejudice against them was pretty unfounded. And you know how it was really expensive. Like I said, it's really expensive to eat at restaurants. Well, I would go eat at their restaurant sometimes, and it's their food. They eat like grubs and stuff like that. Like, so you're talking about the cricket paste, it's really, that's worse than the cricket paste. But they use a lot of good spices and stuff like that, and different vegetables and stuff like that. And it wasn't my favorite, but it was actual food. It wasn't some weird chemical paste stuff, and it was much cheaper than eating out at a human restaurant. So I remember I would go and eat out sometimes, and they're just a really good, pure people, really with a really loving, peaceful culture that got taken advantage of. And that's probably my least favorite part of the Centurion 5 story, is what could have they have been if we would have just left them alone? I don't recall that. I don't remember. But what would have happened to them if we would have just left them alone? I've heard stories of people seeing those same beings at Diego Garcia getting tortured and stuff. So it just seems like because humanity stepped in and messed with their timeline, they're in a way worse off place. And that's just sad to me, because they don't deserve that. The American part of Centurion 5 was mixed. In fact, I don't remember being in the German colony or the Italian colony, but I'm pretty sure that they would allow people of all races and stuff like that too. I'm pretty positive. But the Centurion 5 English American colony, if you want to talk about it, call it that. It was mixed race. There were Caucasian people, African American people, and specifically, not just Asian people, but specifically Hmong people from like the Vietnam, Laos region of Earth. And that might have something to do with it's in their DNA, their soul, their DNA memory, living in a tropical environment. They're used to it. So I think that's part of the reason why they liked taking the Hmong people. I'm not going to assume that, but that could be part of it. But yeah, there's a lot of, like, because the town I live in, Appleton, there's a lot of Hmong people there, and I've recognized a lot of different faces that from the programs. Well, 3. That's still a lot though to me. It shows enough. Like 3 different people that were Hmong people that I remember from the programs. One of them, it was so disconcerting, but one of them was a little boy at the school that I cleaned, mixed. I think he's half white, half Hmong. And I just remember, it's so weird because I saw him at the school, and I got the memory back of me being Ryan and him coming to my door basically to give me information, and Ryan being like, taking the information and like being, yeah, and like acting professional, but in his mind the whole time, you're like, I know this kid. Where do I know this kid from? Where I've seen this face before, but yet I've never seen his face before. Like, and that woke up the memory of, this. So, Centurion 5, the American city is the city that I remember the clearest through Marshall Howard's memories. And it was mixed race. And, everybody there lived pretty normal lives. They just had to, the poor had to work a lot harder, and the rich, I think the rich were all from the, higher up breakaway families, and that's why they got to be the elite. It's because they were people that were either high ups in the military, or they were related to people that were high ups in the military, or people that owned Nestle or owned Coca-Cola or something like that. So those are the people with the money, the people that got put in there to set up the infrastructure. Those were the people with the money. The people that they forced to make the infrastructure, okay, the people that planned it, those are the people with the money. The people that forced to actually implement the plans they made, those are the poor. I hope that makes sense. I was on Centurion 5 for probably hundreds, if not thousands of years, for multiple lifetimes. So I couldn't tell you how long I was there. Regen technology wasn't available on the surface of the planet. I remember that my first freaking life on Centurion 5, I had a son named Benny. He died. He died in a river. He drowned in a river. And I knew regen tech existed because of who I was, but I didn't have access to it. No one came down and said, oh, so that's bad enough. We'll throw your son in a regen tank. Nope. It was a hands-off approach. They let that happen. I had to deal with the fact that my son died. And what's even more messed up about that is they have his DNA on file. Okay. And I was showing this recently. I was taking the other night, my girlfriend even had bruises from this. They brought me to a room, and it was the same tall white that I was telling you about from that school. And he showed me a room full of clones. It was to the left and to the right. Hallway, basically, full of clones, right? In their regen tank things. He took my son out, Benny, okay? Took my son out. He regened him. And he's like, Dad, where am I? Why am I? What happened? Where am I? Like, and I'm just like, it's going to be okay, son. It's not going to be okay, Benny. Like, Daddy's here for you, da, 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 da. And the guy's explaining to me, he's like, I have a power. He's like, I can reunite you with the people you love, or I can take that away from you. I can let you spend time with Benny and let you have a good day with him, and you get to be with your son, or I can torture him in front of you for the whole day. So how about you listen? How about you? And it was because they found out through the grapevine that my German alter, Jeffrey, was going to New Atlantis. Through the grapevine, they found that out, and they put the information together that I was supposed to be there on vacation. That alter was supposed to be there on vacation with his family. Well, I'm a spy. I was actually there on a mission to take some ancient disc. And Solar Warden warned him Solar Warden warned Ryan Sterling, I believe it was, told him to tell Jeffrey, we know what you're about to do. And he showed Ryan Sterling that they had kids of Jeffrey's too. They had loved ones of Jeffrey's too. So like, if you don't listen to us, we can activate loved ones of yours and torture them indefinitely. So like, this is one of the ways that they manipulate you. That's why when you're in these programs, a lot of people do become cold-blooded, heartless monsters. Because if you love anyone or anything, they will use it against you. They will. It's not a matter of will they? No, they will. It's a matter of when they'll use it against you. I do not consider the tall whites positive. My interactions with them do not feel positive. I hear people talk about Solar Warden being positive. This is the way I'll word it. This is the way I'll place it. Not everything is black and white. Not everything is simple as is a group good or is a good group bad. Maybe Solar Warden is a good group that's just trying its best to do what's right. But what you need to understand is when you're actually out there, it's pretty hard to do. Like I brought up earlier today, someone was saying how they're trying to use better methods and they're not trying to be so bad to the kids. That is true, but they're still kidnapping kids. It's still bad. But the thing is when you look at what's at stake, like the reason why they started these programs, like humans, started putting humans into these programs in the first place, is because, dude, Earth isn't, or the universe, the galaxy, space, beyond Earth is not a fun and dandy, happy-go-lucky place. Like, and we, in order to eat with the top dogs, you need to get fit as mentally and physically and everything else and spiritually as the top dogs. And for me, these programs is their way of speeding up humanity's ability to sit down at the table and be a part of the galactic conversation and not be at the kids' table, not looked at as a child race anymore. They're trying to speed up that process. And in that process, they have made so many mistakes, and it's backfired countless times, I think. But yeah, to answer the question of Solar Warden, war is hell. So I can't tell you that there is such thing as a good military organization. But what I can say is, I would say Solar Warden is more positive than negative when it comes to comparing them to other groups. And also, I would say, when Daryl James had way more memory of Solar Warden and stuff like that, right? Like, way more clear, concise memories. And it sounds to me through other people's testimony like, they're doing some good things. I just also remember I was put into Solar Warden against my will as a child. So is it good? That's up for you to decide. That's up for the people to decide. But what I can say is, like, the universe is war, unfortunately, and you need to fight or you'll lose. That's how it works. Like, if you don't even pick up the gun to fight, if you don't even gather the materials to defend yourself if needed, or even if you don't go on the offensive, that's kind of what you need to do, right? To be defensive. So, is Solar Warden good? Like, I keep on going back to that. When you look at what's at stake, that's a really hard question to answer. So I can't say yes or no. But what I can say is there's a lot of people in that organization that are good people trying their best, trying to do good. On Centurion 5, I do remember at some point they have android-like servants, and they look like in the movie iRobot or something like that. But here's the messed up part. It's like they're really expensive, they're really costly to maintain, and everything that the robots could do on Centurion 5, the bipedal native species could do for cheaper. So normally they would just use the native bipedal species, but because the rich are racist against them, they'll pay extra coin to eat at a restaurant where they get served by a robot instead of one of these, these alien creatures or whatever you want to call it. So I do remember that technology being there, but like I said, it wasn't like, oh, well, we can just have robots do all the work. No, they were really expensive, and it was kind of like a class thing. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I don't know if I want to eat at this restaurant. I don't know if it's ritzy enough for me. No, they have a robot. Oh, I guess I can eat there. They have a robot, waiter. So yeah, you'll be fine. That's how the uber rich thought there. They had their nose up at the native species, and they would rather have a robot. They'd rather pay extra money in exorbitant amounts to have a robot feed them as compared to even a poor person, even a poor human. Because then you got to deal with one of the poors. So they had robots to do that. Like I said, it was expensive, so it wasn't like they're doing everything. They were just, it was like a what's the word for it? Like a niche, people wanted it, so they provided it for a premium. It wasn't like cheap labor. A shtick. It was like a shtick, kind of, to get people to come in. You know what I mean? It was like a marketing thing. But yeah, the normal people on the planet, they kind of got it was, the technology is really controlled, just like on Earth. Like, technology that could benefit them and make the planet better and heal people and all that. No, they're using the technology to mind control people through the music, just like on Earth. All the same stuff on Earth that they're doing that's bad, they did on Centurion 5, except more effectively. which made the planet that much more mind controlled than like a prison planet. I described it to, I keep bringing him up, but I described it to John Whitberg before, he got any memories back of it and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, so a concentration camp. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's pretty much just an entire planet that's a concentration camp for the poor that live there. And the rich just get to just eat in their ivory towers and just laugh at them. I do feel like there are some worker revolts at some points, but I'm pretty sure they quelled them with brutal force, especially considering they had such control over the food there. But yeah, the thing about Centurion 5 that I think is that can show you the most about it, like give you a clear picture of it, is like, imagine Earth, but it's tropical and there's dome cities, and I was like, it was Earth-like. It was a human planet, it had a human culture, it had human music, it was, those kind of vibes, but just a very tropical, little bit smaller of a planet with like dinosaurs and stuff on it. I just want to say thanks to everybody for listening, and I hope my stories can help people. If there's anybody else out there with memories of Centurion 5, I'd love to hear from you. And I have my own YouTube, Fractal Weapons. Just look it up. You should be able to find it. And yeah, I do interviews on there and stuff. And actually, I'm trying to make my Fractal Weapons page a lot better. And I'm going to be making a GoFundMe soon for a new computer that I'll be posting on the Fractal Weapons and on my Facebook and stuff like that, because I want to be able to make professional quality videos for you people, not just interviews. I want to make professional with slides and me talking about stuff and explaining things. I need to be able to do that. And right now I can't because I don't have a computer that can do that. So I'm going to start a GoFundMe for that. And then also with the music industry, which me and James are going to do an interview on next time I talk to him, I'm learning about the frequencies that they use to program us at Montauk. Preston had quadraphonic stereo system that he would use to send frequencies and program us and do things to us. I'm learning about all of that, and my goal is to be able to do presentations and provide soundtracks, tapes, or you could just look it up on the internet too, to where if you want to put certain programming, like let's say you're a person who has anxiety, listen to these certain frequencies that will help program your brain out of the feelings of anxiety. Like Preston learned how to do that stuff at Montauk and used it for evil purposes. Well, if that technology exists, if that sound music technology exists, why not learn how to use it and harness that same power for good? They're taking evil, the most magical occult force out there, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing, and they're turning it evil. And we need to say no. So that moving forward, I'm going to make sound healing videos, make sound healing tapes. I'm going to try to get it to the point where I can sell quadraphonic stereos, because they don't sell those anymore. But yeah, my mission is to expose the music industry for what it is, expose the fact that they stole my songs, and turn it around where we can start using music to heal the earth and each other. And I've been doing a lot of research into it, and it all starts with frequency, and it all starts with figuring out what frequencies do what, and reversing. They figured out what frequencies do what, and they're using them for bad purposes. We need to figure out the same things and start reversing that damage and setting up frequencies of higher vibration, and sending us on a force. Because to me, and I'm not gonna, don't quote me on this. I say that a lot because I have to admit when I'm wrong and when I'm coming to conclusions and I don't have all the information. So forgive me if I ever backtrack on this. I'm doing a lot of research into it and I haven't made my conclusion yet, but there's the 432 hertz, 440 debate. I'm starting to think more so that the 432 thing is actually accurate and is better. For a while there, I was like, oh, I think it's just a bunch of guys that some prefer the more tension, some people prefer less. But I'm starting to realize, no, it seems like there's a lot more nefarious stuff going on beyond that. And I believe that is part of what's going on. Is Earth is at a certain frequency, 432, and I believe it's very likely that they're trying to pull us into this different 440 frequency. It's like and right now Earth is like an out-of-tune piano, and that's why it's so disharmonious and wrong. It's because we're not quite on 432 frequency, and we're not quite on 440 frequency, and they're trying to bring us into that darker, more tense 440 frequency. And any musician will tell you whether or not they believe 432 or not. 432 sounds more mellow. It sounds more relaxing. 432 sounds more tense. There's even musicians in the history of composing music that would tune higher to the 440 whatever because they literally purposely wanted a little bit more tension. So again, I don't want to tell people wrong facts, but there's a lot of people who looked into that, and for a while there, I thought it was all kind of 440 is fine, and maybe but I think there might be something to it. Frequency is really powerful. I mean, Nikola Tesla talked about how when we realize the power of frequency, how much it's going to unlock for us. So I'm trying to help propel us to that point where we really are looking at frequency and are understanding its power the way that Tesla did. So I'm at the bottom of the mountain right now, but I'm climbing it, and I will get to the top, and you're all going to come with me.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.